Have you ever wondered what it means to be human? How our stories are connected to those around us? Our guest today is an emerging South African artist who explores her deep fascination with what it means to be human. From storyteller to art curator, I'm thrilled to have with me in the studio Serena Moodley Anderson. Serena, welcome to Echoes of Eternity.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's been a long time since we last met.
A few months.
Yeah, a few months actually.
It's gone by, yeah.
Time flies. I can't remember, so I just want to ask you, did you go for a hike this morning? I think
I did.
Okay, did you enjoy
went
that?
I did very much. I think I needed it also because I was a bit nervous for
Okay.
today. But yeah, it wasn't like a proper hike. We went up the West Cliff steps and then did like a meditation in the park.
Oh, wow.
A friend of mine runs it and he's got insane skills with meditation. It's just deeply grounding. I think I need that a lot of the time just to settle.
Okay, I mean, you should have called me. I would have come with you this
Yeah,
morning.
actually, you should next time. I'll give you the
Yeah,
details.
that's
You
awesome,
should.
man.
Okay.
So that's good. I want to chat a bit, right? So you obviously an artist, you a portrait painter to a large extent. But what many people might not know is that you have this neurological condition, right? So could you maybe tell us a little bit about that and, how you came to be such a successful self-taught artist?
Okay, thank you for the praise there. It's a difficult one to take because I feel like I'm still finding my feet, honestly. I don't know. Do you want the long story or the short story?
Oh, it's up to you. It's your story, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that question also, like, how did I become an artist? And I really feel like it's something I was born this way. And life took me on a journey where I ended up fighting against it a lot of the time. I mean, as a child, you naturally embrace these things about yourself. You know, if you're drawn to a hobby, whether it's soccer or gardening, I don't know, or you want to be outdoors all the time, or you want to draw all the time, you're naturally drawn to it. You don't question it. You just go with it. You kind of follow your instinct. You're much more in tune with it. And so it was like that for me as a kid. Like I hardly spoke to the point where I think my mother thought there might be something wrong with me. She would make me stand like in the passage and say nursery rhymes until she could hear my voice because I didn't see the point in speaking unless you had something important to communicate. Like I wasn't a chit-chatty person, but I drew a lot. I think I experienced life and I put it into pictures. And then as you grow older, society tells you, like, that's a nice hobby, but what are you going to actually do with yourself? So I didn't really have a lot of support. And I know it comes from a place of love because your family wants you to be able to love, take care of yourself. And they don't see a future in the arts. And I mean, I totally see why. There was no one who came before me in my family, especially like the generations that are South African. We came here through indenture system. So I'm a third generation South African Indian. And if you consider that, the generations before me were all focused on survival. Just trying to get through the day, put food on the table, those basic requirements needed to be met. And then when you got more opportunities, it's like secure yourself with a house, with a car, those things. And I mean, who doesn't want that? But unfortunately for me, I can't fake it as a priority. It just isn't. And it's a difficult thing to admit to myself. Also, I'm a mother. I've been married like 14 years. I have a 9-year-old son. I need to focus on those things, but at the same time, I have to be what I was born to be, I suppose. And life brought me here through like a challenging situation, and I don't know, I've hit my head a lot growing up. Okay, so I think when I first decided to give up on the whole art thing was in matric because I wanted to study fine art, but my family said, it's not a good idea, choose something else. And I think when I realized, okay, I can't do it, I really need to just leave it because I'm almost obsessive about it. And I was kind of cutting those cords at the time. And then I got into a really bad car accident with my sister, bad head injury. I was concussed and stuff. And it did affect me in ways, but I thought I had recovered to some extent. I carried on with life, chasing a whole lot of different career paths, like I don't know how many millions of things I've done. That, you know, when it's not the right thing, it's very difficult to stay. So I kept looking for something, not finding it. And then in 2020, I had another really bad bang on the head. But this time, I had an impact in the same place as the first impact. And the way the doctors describe it is it's something that happens to like NFL players, where they have a double impact in the same place, and then like your brain waves get confused and they focus all on the damaged part, and then the rest of your brain doesn't work fantastically. So that was how one doctor described it. There's been various different diagnoses and stuff. One was silent seizures and stuff, but the doctor I'm with now has named it a functional neurological disorder. So it's basically my brain's not functioning correctly. There's no clear reason why. But yeah, I'm definitely different as a result. I think the biggest change was I couldn't do the work I was doing before because it affected my eyesight. I actually couldn't speak for a while as well. I was just stuttering. And I mean, in that time, I was losing my income because I was running my own businesses from home, and I couldn't do it anymore. And as soon as you stop, you know, when you're doing your own thing, as soon as you stop, it just falls to pieces. There's no one else to carry it for you. You are the engine of it, so it just dies like that. And I actually need to thank a friend of mine, Lazi. He's my son's godfather. He came to see me, and I don't know, out of pity or something, but just to ask me, he asked me if I still drew, like from high school. And he asked me to draw him something for his apartment, his new place. And because I had literally nothing I could do at that point. And I thought, you know what, it'd actually be nice to try, and I'll do something for you. And it was the most amazing experience because it was the first pain relief I'd had in months. As soon as I let myself kind of sink into it and start drawing, painting. And then I couldn't stop because on the days that I was painting, I was sleeping. It was the best medicine, honestly. And it's just grown from there. That's how I find myself in
I mean,
this
that's
position.
like incredible. Like, I'm really taken aback. I mean, I think it's such a beautiful story, and you know how you've almost persevered. And I think for me, the most interesting part is, like you said it right at the beginning, we all have this sort of hobby or interest that we're very drawn to when we're young. But then as we grow up, and I don't know if it's because, you know, there's lots of outside noise that eventually takes it away from you. And also, I mean, there's expectation and your priorities change and stuff as you go along. But I think your story is so beautiful because you started off with like the drawing, and, you know, like you said, you experience life and you put it in pictures almost. And then, you know, you sort of lost that a little bit because of things changed. Then, you know, it came back, but it never left you, it seemed like, right? And I want to unpack this a little bit because you're self-taught. You know, I think people underestimate that journey as well because you almost have to be the teacher and the student at the same time, right?
That's so true.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, in your opinion, like, what does it actually take to be someone that's self-taught and to teach yourself, you know, a skill?
So I can only tell you from my
Yeah,
experience,
sure.
like what it's like. I feel like this particular hobby, interest, skill of mine, talent, you'd call it. It's. I mean, I didn't. When I think about how I drew as a child, it wasn't anything fantastic. It was just such a need to produce, to keep creating and drawing. And when you work at something consistently, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to improve at it, right? It's going to get better and better. The thing I found interesting with my journey in particular is I'd stopped at a time where I was drawing every day, like uncontrollably, drawing on anything. And it's not like I could ask my parents for drawing paper or something like that. You know, we weren't like well to do, and it is an unnecessary expense. So literally like waiting for my parents to finish reading their mail so I could draw on the envelope or on the back or wherever I could find a gap to draw on something, till slips or corners of magazines, like anywhere. Literally drawing over the faces of people in magazines. And when I stopped, I knew I was doing well. I'd taken art in high school. I begged and pleaded my family, they allowed me. And I took art in high school and I loved it. And you know, I was still feeding that fire there. And then I actually like took such a long break from it. Although I must tell you, I did study fashion design eventually. But a lot of people think like it's a continuation of the work. Studying fashion design felt like having to unlearn everything I knew about art and everything I've showed myself about art. Because you all have to draw the same. You all have to draw the same fashion figure. You all have to know how to do it in the exact same way. It was just becoming another human computer kind of thing. It was terribly boring. I liked design. I was naturally good at it, so I did excel. I did really well. I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's actually stupid how well I did in that course. Like I finished at the top of the college, not even top of my
Wow,
class.
amazing.
But also I was pushing really hard because I was feeling very guilty about being there. And because my parents put me there because there was nothing else I could find to do, right? But when I stopped, I felt like I'll never get my skill back. Now I've spent 3 years doing this other style that's not even mine. And then it was actually easier to walk away from the whole thing. Just leave this. This is like, you've wasted enough time. Go do something else. But when I started working again after the head injury, it was automatically where I left off, it was back. I didn't have to like start from base again. I just had to decide I wanted to access that. So I think when it comes to teaching yourself a skill, if you have the interest, if you have the desire to do it, I think that's the most important ingredient. And I think when it comes to art, I don't want to like say anything bad about institutions, right? I haven't been through the system, but I find it so liberating that I get to break any rules I want when it comes to making art. And I have been told, but you can't do that. That's not how you paint. That's not how you do these things. And I'm like, I'm making my own rules here. But I love it because it gives me such freedom to kind of pioneer my own style, find my own way. And I think it's important to not be afraid and to not be worried so much about the end result, particularly in this field. I suppose in other areas it would be difficult, but I think in the arts, trusting the process is the most important thing. And it makes that teacher-student relationship within yourself very easy because you become a forgiving teacher and you become an eager student because there's no consequence to making mistakes, which I don't really think exist in art anyway. But when you feel it's not going right, it's not about I need to fix this. It's about accessing patience, about where is it going? Why am I frustrated? There's something more I need to unlock, something I need to try. And you don't always know what that is. I can't say that I like use books or tutorials or things like that because I also don't want to pollute my own process. So it is very...
I mean, it's quite interesting actually. Some of the ingredients that you mentioned actually that I never thought about. But it's like you're saying, you also have to learn to be patient with yourself. I mean, that's something I think I struggle with a lot personally. I mean, just, trying to learn new skills. There's a lot of pressure that you can put on yourself, right? So even though you said it's like liberating because you can almost color outside of the lines, right? You're allowed to do that. At the same time, I don't know if you feel the same, but is there ever like a voice or, do you ever question that sometimes and be like, sure, I've colored out the lines here, what are people going to say? And there's that like judgment that almost comes, or even like this expectation and that pressure that you put on yourself then. Do you ever find that struggle sometimes within yourself?
No, definitely. Like we all our worst critics, right? So there is definitely that voice. There's a lot of doubt in it. There's a lot of doubt. And I'm coming from like a whole lifetime of self-doubt because I think I didn't understand how fundamentally important being an artist was to me until I became one. And because I let it go so many times, I see how easily swayed I was because of other people's opinions or needs or expectations of me. And that is all because I thought, if they don't think I can do it. It wasn't. I couldn't see the guidance at the time. I did take it as, oh, okay, they don't think I can do it. I probably can't do it. Like I don't have what it takes to be an artist or to chase this dream, which is why they're telling me to do something else. It did feel like that at the time. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a solution for that problem. I think it's something you have to sit with each time. And I feel like every time it happens, because it happens a lot, it's almost like a test for yourself. Like, how bad do you actually want this? Are you going to get over this little hill you created? Because you create it for yourself when you doubt, or you start wondering about how someone else is going to feel about your work instead of just doing it authentically and giving it your soul.
I think that's like profound. Like you describe it as these hills that we create for ourselves. And, if I think about it, if we start allowing the outside voices to also affect that hill, it almost amplifies that hill, makes it much more difficult. But I must commend your courage, even leaving after completing the 3 years at fashion school and then saying, what, this is not for me. I think that's very courageous, right? Because you can sometimes feel like you've spent 3 years studying or pursuing something, and you're scared to almost start again, right? Because that's sometimes what it can feel like. You go on this journey, and then you realize, okay, this is not for me. I don't enjoy this. But at the same time, at the back of your head, and I don't know if it's for everyone, it might be different for everyone, but I always feel like, I have to start again, right? And it takes so much courage just to say, but then it comes back to what you said again. It's how much do you want something? That desire, it's so important. It drives everything, really. I want to ask you something, because you mentioned you can't make mistakes in art, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because there was something that I think it's Art Savings Club sent to me, because I dabble a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Nowhere near where you are, but I dabble. They sent me this something, I don't know what's the word for it, but anyway, there's a quote on there. I think it's by Scott Adams, and he said that, trying to recall now, creativity is making mistakes, something. Art is knowing which ones to keep.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, how do you actually define creativity then? Because so many people feel like it's binary. So I wanna have this discussion with you, someone who is an artist, right? They feel like it's binary. Either you creative or you're not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you actually define creativity?
I think creativity is much more than just creating things. I feel like creativity can pop up in so many ways, like from the way you, I don't know, design your home, or the way you parent, the way you approach marriage, the way you even approach your job. You can be very creative in these fields. And I feel like creativity is simply not looking at what the person before you did or what the person next to you is doing, but trying to find a solution that fits you or fits what's happening currently. And I think that's something we make a mistake with as people, is the world is constantly changing, constantly evolving. Things that made sense 20 years ago don't make sense anymore. Yet, that's in the rule book, so we follow it. And I feel like it's so stifling. Like, we have to keep evolving. And maybe creativity is just being open to that constant evolution, being in tune with it, being in flow with it. I mean, oftentimes with my paintings, it's really like a Zen-like state I go into when I'm painting. And I feel like I'm a channel more than anything else. Like, ideas come to me. I dream colors, and in the morning I'm mixing them. And I'll dream compositions, and in the morning I'm trying to figure them out. It comes to me because I open and I choose to stay open. And I feel like I could just as easily say, no, I don't want it anymore, and it would stop. And maybe we all have that ability to be a channel to something bigger. But because we're focused on the structure of society, like fitting in there and getting things done in the right way, it maybe stifles that.
I mean, that's amazing, because if I think of creativity, it's I think it's what you're saying. It's almost like freedom of expression, right? And I get the sense that, I love that, you're someone that isn't worried about the rules and the structure. And it's literally sometimes creativity is just about breaking those rules, breaking that structure. It's allowing yourself to do that, because that's probably where innovation comes from, right?
Absolutely.
If you're trying to solve today's problems using a solution that comes from 20 years ago, like you're saying, it's probably not going to work. And you need to be open-minded and adaptable to what's in front of you. It's also beautiful, like how you say you dream in colors, and like, I mean, I wish I could dream in colors. I think, yeah, that would be so fascinating.
It's fun, but I do lose a lot of sleep sometimes. I wake up and like, oh, I want to go mix it now.
I can imagine. I have to ask you this question, right? It's something that's like boggled my mind like forever, right? And you paint mostly like portraits of people, and you try to capture their stories and the expression, and the emotion and all of that. How do you pick the right colors for that?
Oh my gosh, that is a tough question. So, okay, my last series of work was called Introspection. And it happened from like me having a lot of dreams and waking up in the morning. We stayed in a really beautiful flat in Westdean, right next to the Koppies. And I'd be up at like 4 in the morning. And then you notice the sun start to come up. And it was this intense orange glow, like really almost fluorescent. And then there's such peace at that time of the day. And I was thinking, like, whoever's up at this time, you're absorbing so much energy. Like everyone else is sleeping, and there's so much of it around, and we're getting it. And I was wondering, like, what would that be? What is that energy? Like, what is that waking up? And I got this idea in my head, like, if soul had a color, it would be that color. Like, it's such a bright, intense light, but it just like flows into the world and lights everything up. And, like when it comes to choosing colors, there's funny instances like that where, you're kind of just making sense of things on your way, but it's a very personal story. While I'm working, it's completely intuitive beyond that point. So I might have, like, I based the entire series on that sunrise color. But while I was working, each painting called for something different. And I really just trust it and go with it. I think in the beginning, I definitely used to overthink because, I went out and spent money on a canvas. And it felt like such a luxury. And now I'm like overthinking every step of this canvas. And I did not produce good work like that, I'll be honest. I mean, some of those paintings I still had, and I painted over them eventually. But I know I wasn't producing well because I wasn't trusting my gut with it. So for me, I do say, like, if people ask me about what kind of artist I am, there's 2 things I feel that describe my work. One is being an intuitive artist, where I'm literally letting my intuition guide me before anything else. I actually find it very difficult to plan a painting because there's only so much planning, and then I need to leave room for intuition to step in and take over the rest. And the other one is basically being a silent storyteller. So if I had to paint your portrait and know your story, just being in tune with that would guide me to colors I wouldn't usually use, perhaps. And I just have to trust it and go with it. And funny enough, when that happens, you'll see the muse coming to see the painting and be like, it's so interesting you did that because it means this to me. Or it's so interesting that, you added this element because, I'm really feeling that. Or, so it's really good.
Yeah, I'm like really moved. I mean, so this is a big lesson for me as well. Like what you're saying, like, you don't always plan out every step of the way, and you leave room for intuition. That for me is like amazing, because I don't think enough of us do that, right? We're so worried, and I don't know if it's just because of the day and age we live in, but we're so worried about chasing perfectionism almost, that we almost put intuition on a back foot, almost like, on purpose sometimes, or we just forget about it and we're scared to tap into that. And there's something else you said that I want to like reiterate is, like, when you woke up, and you at that place you're staying at and you saw the sun. Imagine if we could all just take 2 minutes, sometimes, and I think it comes back to also being present, right? You take someone that's very present, you notice and appreciate something like the color and the warmth of the sun.
Yeah.
Right? Like if people could just do that, I mean, that would just be amazing. I don't do it often enough.
Okay.
Right? So the fact that you mentioned it is like a really nice reminder even for me.
I'm glad.
I mean, we've chatted now like a bit about, how you like your process a little bit and how you choose colors. I'm sure there's someone out there that's like, wondering how can I access, because like we've said, creativity isn't exclusive, right? I believe that we all have some level of creativity within us. It's relative, right? Like we've spoken about this freedom of expression. It's you just noticing the warmth and the color of the sun, and boom, it opens up a whole world of creativity. How can someone out there that's listening to this, watching, access their, creative potential?
Yeah. That's a cool question. I really like that. I think to start with simple stuff, like if you're cooking, okay, you want to make something, you have it in your mind. Maybe you've tasted something somewhere and your instinct is go find a recipe and follow it exactly. What if you read the ingredients alone and then decided to wing it from that point on? It's like you know what you want. You can almost taste it. You can almost smell it. You know exactly what you're going for. You understand the ingredients in front of you. What if you make your own way? You could discover something even better than that recipe. I think like just to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Like I'm saying, like when I worked in a very controlled manner, I didn't produce great work. And now I really like to stay just outside of my depth, just outside. It must never feel easy. It must never feel comfortable. And that's where creativity, I feel like, comes in to rescue you almost, where you can access it because you need it then. If you keep everything safe, you don't need it. And then it doesn't come to play with you.
That's so cool, actually, because, I mean, just like my first instinct is like, sure, Serena, you're asking me to throw out the recipe book here, right? And I'm sure like many people have that same fear, but it's like you're saying, it's about pushing yourself and getting outside of your comfort zone. And I think I just had this thought when you were talking, right? And I think curiosity is also so important, right? It's, if I can say like, creativity is the nail, then curiosity would be the hammer almost.
Yeah, I love
right?
that.
So it's so important because from questions, I mean, it opens up a whole new world.
Yeah.
Throw out that recipe book. I don't know if you've ever experienced it, creativity blocks, right? Because we've spoken about this now that, creativity is open to all of us. We can access it. And it's not that difficult to find. But you mentioned it as well, like you like to stay outside of just stay outside of the lines. Do you ever feel scared that you'll lose your creativity, right?
A creative block I haven't experienced, and I think it's because when I reach a hiccup, like there's often projects that'll come my way, like commissions and stuff, where it's I would say out of my comfort zone, but even out of my interest zone. All right. So it's something that I wouldn't usually delve into. But I feel like that's a really great place to push myself. So often I'll get a brief or something. I'm even sitting with one now. It's so outside of anything I've done before. And in the beginning, honestly, I can say I'm blank. I'm just looking at this thinking, I don't know. Maybe I'm not the right person for this. But I want to be. I want to figure this out because I don't know what I'm going to learn on the way. Even if I fail, I'm going to learn something from it. And maybe, like you mentioned courage, but it's maybe kind of pushing fear aside and going for it anyway. And then just seeing what comes out. I think that maybe that could be a solution to creative blocks. And just don't stop working. Like I have spoken to other artists who are like, I'm having a creative block. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like there's just nothing coming to them. So they've walked away from it for a while. I feel like that may be the mistake. Okay. Don't walk away from it. Maybe your work in a certain department is just done. And you need to accept that. Like that story of introspection, let's say, that I mean, honestly, I was just producing painting after painting and I got to one, I was like, oh, I'm finished here. Like it was just a realization and I had to push that away and think like, what's next? I don't know. Do some sketches and see. Go out and have some experiences and see. There's another story to tell. You just have to find it. And maybe it's when we get too comfortable in what we're doing and what we see as what we're good at, maybe that's when the creative blocks come.
I think that's a really like fascinating perspective. Like you mentioned, don't step away from it, because I would have thought solitude is probably one way to get over that. But I guess what you're saying as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you do step away, then there is a possibility that you completely step away, and then you do lose whatever you're working on, because you just switch off almost.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned like don't be afraid to fail, right? Because there's so much you can learn from that process.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, just pushing aside that fear, and just it's fine to make mistakes. 'Cause
Yeah.
there are no mistakes really. It's how you see it. Again, it's perspective, and just learning from that as well.
Definitely.
There's one other thing I want to chat about. Like I think it's in your Instagram bio as well. Like you kind of, I don't want to use the word pride yourself, but like you someone who titles her work or her ambition or the purpose as trying to understand what does it mean to be human. And I'm sure you've had an opportunity to sit across from some people with really like deep stories and like really important subjects that they would like to bring to light, and you do that through your artwork. What do you think has surprised you the most about just being human, I guess?
I think the thing I've learned the most is the more I learn, the more I see, the more I realize I know nothing. This world is so big, there's so much we don't understand, there's so much we take for granted or don't give time to. And I'm very grateful to be in the position where I am, because it feels like I get to research my own existence, which we don't often get to do. And I find people just so beautifully complex. And I know a lot of people will say like, oh, but I'm flawed in this way. And this is, we all have our positives and our negatives. But I feel like we are actually perfect the way we are. The flaws we have lead us to make the mistakes that teach us the most, and end up feeding the good side of us. Like I meet a lot of people who are very hard on themselves, and I think it's important for me to make people feel seen. I feel like that's something that a lot of us are chasing with no real way of reaching that goal, because the world now like wants you to be a certain way to be noticed. But then where's room for authenticity? And I know a lot of people have also asked me, like, why don't I just paint famous people? I'd get famous a lot faster. But everybody knows their stories already. Whereas, you might sit next to someone at a bus stop and their story is so important and no one's ever going to tell it. And it's those people that I want to paint and those people that I want to share with the world. Because it's like every single one matters. I think that's the main thing I want to get out with my work. It's like your story matters. Doesn't matter where you are. I've struggled with my own mental health issues in the past, and I think, especially as a female artist, you're asked if you're a feminist or if your work is all about gender-based violence or something like that. And I think my work is definitely about just making people feel seen. And yeah.
I think that's so important. I feel like to some extent we very much aligned, in that respect.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I get asked the question, why don't you try and get hold of these famous people?
Yeah.
But it's so important to, everyone has a story, and it's sometimes you find the most like profound lessons, just chatting to people that you don't even know, right? Just sharing their story and their journey. I mean, it's, you can learn so much. And I love that your work tries to put that on a platform, and, and you mentioned like authenticity, and I feel like people struggle with this concept, right? Everyone is maybe searching for authenticity. And that's something, it's probably quite important in your work, right? Because you try to capture that authenticity. You try to
Yeah.
bring that story to light in the most, like the truest way possible. But in order for that to happen, there needs to be vulnerability.
Yeah.
How do you manage to, like get someone to open up? Because it's not easy. It's very personal.
I hear what you're saying, and I know it's technically not easy, but for me somehow it really has been. Um, my whole life, like even in high school, people would just come and confide in me. I don't know what that's about. I'm very grateful. It always feels like an honor. And you know, sometimes you just meet someone. Some of my muses have been people I've met at exhibitions who come to see the work, connect with it, and there's just something about them. There's something that I feel I need to understand about them. It ends up being a coffee, a conversation. And like I said to you, I'm not good at the small talk stuff. So we end up talking about like the deepest, darkest things. Like we just met. I go home and my husband asks me, so like, what do they do? I'm like, I don't know, but I know all about their childhood trauma. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I don't know where she works. I don't know where she comes from, but I know what kind of drives her or him or, you know, and I'm going to say him because as well, I do paint male portraits, though men are so reluctant actually because this is vulnerability thing, right? But I think if you give people a safe space to talk without judgment, and that's something that's important to me. I feel like judgment like is an absolute waste of our energy. Like having opinions about each other are fruitless because you don't know anything beyond what that person is showing you. So making judgments based on that is ridiculous because there's a whole ocean of stories and emotion and perspectives that you know nothing about. So how can you judge? And if I don't know, it seems like people are almost aware of that just from conversation with me, and they tend to let out a lot. Obviously, I'd never share some of the
Yes.
things I feel like holding space for them is so important. It's very sacred for me. And yeah, I just feel very honored. Like if I could thank every single muse who's shared with me right now, I like the bond is insane. Those connections are so important to me. And then it always feels like I get to now honor you with a painting. So I'm very grateful for those. I don't know what it is, but I'm just grateful.
No, I think that's like, it's brilliant. And it comes back to, like you're saying, maybe it's because you just have this natural way of creating a safe space when you having a discussion with someone. Imagine if we could all do that for each other, right? And like you said, it leads to much deeper connections.
Absolutely. And it's a two-way street. I feel like every person I've gotten to work with now has given me so much, even with understanding myself. Because I feel like I've only really tried now to get to know myself through this journey. I was constantly trying to play another role that wasn't for me. So now also like I'm learning about myself through this journey as well. So I think that's also why that thing of authenticity that I keep talking about is vitally important, because I feel like I'm only going to do my best work if I stay on track with that.
I think like it's being in tune with your journey as well, right?
Yeah.
I think along your own personal journey, you learn about yourself. If you try and play the role of someone else, you never really get to meet yourself, right? And I love that about your work. And yeah, it's like through that you get to learn about yourself, which is amazing. And maybe speaking about that, right, we can jump to reflections. Now you've brought like a few items which I
some
love.
random things.
I'm sure they're random, but I mean, I'm looking really forward to it. Do you want to chat us through what
Sure,
you've
sure.
brought
So
along?
actually, I'll this year I just had it in the car with me. So it's and this way I would like to tell you about this one because now we've spoken about intuition. I wasn't sure in the beginning, but it makes sense to have this book here. I feel like when you're open, when you start practicing using your intuition, it speaks to you louder and louder. And one of the things that happened, like I love to read because I love stories, and so I always seem to get these little anecdotes that also help me on my way, definitely shape the way I see life. And what I love about stories is you can, especially with novels, you could write about the most horrendous character and somehow make him still endearing enough that you can be empathetic and compassionate towards them. But in real life, you wouldn't. In real life, if I had to tell you some of the things that these characters doing, you'd be like, what is wrong with her? But because she's in this book, safe on these pages, and it's in a world that could allow for her to exist in this way, it's okay. You can love her still. And I really love that about books. And this book here has been profound for me because there seems to be something I can connect with every character here. Like the deepest, darkest of myself. There's one person walking around with a piece of each of it. And it's been the most healing and fascinating journey. But I feel like if I didn't know how to listen to my intuition or really feel it, and I do feel like it's a feeling here, like really strong, like you can feel it, when you're on the right path with something. I wouldn't have found it. And I needed this book, actually. I needed it.
That's
I'd recommend
amazing.
it to anyone. It's
Okay,
a good one.
yeah.
It's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to share there? 'Cause-
So I had this because, long story. And it's so funny because we're talking now about people asking me to paint famous faces, and I never did it. And I painted this one. This is a portrait of Maxi Jazz, okay? And I did it for a friend. But this portrait is not so much to me about Maxi Jazz. It was about connection in unexpected places, basically, where I'd known this person for years, and then I was looking for a male muse and couldn't find one. And eventually I asked him and he said yes. When we had a conversation, it felt like talking to an old friend. And it was very interesting to find someone else who also made the effort to look at the clouds, look at the sunset. Like we're looking through our camera rolls and we both just have pictures of clouds and sunsets. And
awesome.
he was... she showed me a picture that he took of a sunset when he was on holiday with his family. And the colors were so incredible. And then when Maxi Jazz passed, he was saying, you should do a portrait of it. And it was just like those ingredients of making a connection with someone, the memories of the music, actually, knowing someone else out there was probably having a similar experience at that time when I was also listening to Maxi Jazz. And then those sunset colors. It just... appreciating all those connections made me actually go ahead and do the painting. And I did it small, but because I was just feeling a lot of gratitude at the time that I keep meeting good people wherever I go. Like Diageo, who you've met, like life has changed so much since I met her. She's just like helped me connect to so many amazing things, and I'm so grateful for those instances. There's so many, like the list goes on, from artists to gallery owners to, mentors like Tabo and Molefe. They've guided me so much, and I think all of that gratitude came out in this little portrait. And as tiny as it is, I feel like it's some of my best work, to be honest. And I need to return it to its owner because I did gift it to that friend.
It's a really, really cool painting, actually. I mean,
Thank you.
I love it. I love the colors. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, and like you're saying, right, it's connections in unexpected places.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
I mean, also you mentioned like gratitude. I suppose this is a nice way. Like I never thought about it until now, but gratitude looks different for all of us. But this could be a nice way of expressing that gratitude, even just for yourself, right? Yeah. You don't have to be an artist, a painter, whatever. But you could just buy a canvas, take a piece of paper and put your gratitude on paper or on a canvas. I think that would be quite cool. It's a nice concept. I never thought about that.
And somehow working from that energy, from a place of gratitude, is very powerful.
Okay, last one. I think it's the last one.
Yeah, I'll tell you about
two
these two.
things. Okay, no,
it's actually
cool.
one and the same. But I spoke about music.
Yes.
And like when we're talking about creativity, I feel like even appreciating art, music, anything creative, is you tapping into your creativity as well. And I don't know about you, but like listening to a lot of new music, I'm very uninspired. Like a lot of stuff that comes out and it's all over the radio for a week and then it disappears because it was never that good to begin with. I think previously music used to tell stories. It used to be inspired. It was poetry in motion, really. And we've lost so much of that. Now I'm really, really grateful to my dad because he had a very extensive taste in music. It's just he's so many genres that he covered, and he would collect music and play a lot of music. And when I was little, I apparently didn't cry much, but if you wanted me to sleep, he'd put me down in front of his enormous Jensen speakers and play hard rock, like Led Zeppelin or AC/DC or Deep Purple and stuff. And it's stuff that I still, as hard as it is, I'll play that now when I need comfort. It's
Wow,
like,
okay.
like when I need to be
Okay.
soothed, I need that kind of music. And so I brought along, because I'm continuing his collection, and I brought along this one here because I love the music on it. It's absolutely wild and crazy. But there's a song on here called Magic Carpet Ride that was actually playing when my son was born, even. And it just like it resonates with me because it's music that, like, the story actually talks about how funny life is, and how good and bad and ugly all at the same time, but it's beautiful. Basically, it's a magic carpet ride, but it doesn't mean it's smooth. And this one here I brought along because as a kid I was always dying to use my dad's record player. Right, I would always watch him doing it as carefully as ever. And when he finally let me put one on myself, this was the first record that I played. And it was just like a memory that really stuck with me because I think music is so powerful, and listening to vinyls, if you don't, you should. It's a whole different experience. It's a whole different experience. There's nothing like it. That crackle and stuff is like otherworldly.
Okay, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Wow, I must say that cover is also quite
It is beautiful.
inspiring.
I also
actually,
I
because-
stared at this for ages when I was a kid.
look
It's
at this
really,
thing.
really beautiful.
Yeah, it's quite cool. Maybe yeah. In closing and wrapping this session up, I must say, I see you. I appreciate you and the work you're doing. It's so important. Trying to showcase people's stories through the work you're doing, and even just your own personal journey. It's a journey we all actually on, whether we know it or not, about self-discovery and learning who we are. And I know now you've lost your dad not too long ago. Is there any, do you want to use this platform to almost immortalize some of the wisdom is there something like a lesson that he's maybe passed on to you that you'd like to share with all of us?
There's a lot, but there's something my dad said that I actually think of all the time, and even with my work. And I don't know if he meant it in this way, but he would always say, work smarter, not harder, right, for what you're chasing. And I feel like that helped me tap into intuition a lot, because when you're looking for smart solutions, you need creative solutions. And that's
That's brilliant. I think it sums everything up so well, and I'm glad we got to put that on this platform for everyone. So thank you for sharing that and for telling your story and bringing all of this along. I mean, love it.
No, thank you so much. And I mean, same. I'm so inspired by what you're doing. You're also telling people stories, and it's like you're still supporting the underdog. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
It's
you're
amazing.
welcome.
It's
Yeah,
really
you're
nice to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Had a good time.
Okay, thank you.